Yeah, just finishing off a bit of a Bombay mix. My, my favourite little snack at the moment. Okay, just let's put things on silent a moment. Yeah, I kind of have a big breakfast these days. I do some bioenergetics in the morning, and then I have like quite a lot of protein for breakfast. Then I don't need to eat so much during the day. I don't know, it gives me a kind of a raw, kind of hungry feeling sometimes that I quite enjoy. This, I guess it's quite a male feeling, sort of primal, wanting to, this sort of hunger. Anyway, back again with some time for some more Q&A. I've been Skype sessioning most of the afternoon. I've just been finishing off a very nice workshop, 7-day intensive, just completed this morning, which I was co-leading, and that was great just to see people. I really had to salute them at the end. Hey, Luigi, you were with us at the beginning, but I had to salute these guys because like 16 people coming to do a week of intense therapy, and a few years ago I was kind of getting worried that this kind of intense therapeutic process work where you really go into the dark side, you don't just try and pretend everything's nice, you talk about all the shit and you move through it. It looked a little bit to me like maybe it's going to die out, and like there's just no, people don't want to do that stuff anymore. They just want to pretend everything's great, and put a mask on and keep a mask on. So I find when people come into these intense group processes, I need to honor and respect them, because, to stay 7 days in this intense journey and going through all your crap, I mean, that's really something in today's day and age. And I'm just hopeful that it comes back, that there's a tide that moves backwards and moves back in a sense, and that, people just get more and more into really looking at what's going on in the psyche, they come out of this whole thing. I've been of like trying to pretend who you are and trying to create a perfect kind of character in your mind and then project that outwards, and just repress everything else that doesn't fit in with this perfect fucking character. So, the world's been working that one out for the last 20 years, I think. Ever since the new man kind of turned up about, I don't know when the new man rocked up into our culture, maybe mid-80s or something, some Notting Hill left-wing intellectuals or something. And they all came up with how guys should be now, and that was pretty much a fucking disaster. And then it's become now there's like a crisis in masculinity. There is, because I get a lot of young guys coming onto my channel and stuff and saying, how does who the fuck can I be as a guy now, like is it okay to even chat up women? Is it okay to even fancy women? We're in this kind of crisis. But underneath what you got to remember, on the deepest level, it's about finding out who you are. That's what it comes down to. Who are you? And you have a right to find that out. And that is deeper. That's deeper than any government. It's deeper than any social structure. It's deeper than any parental conditioning. It's deeper than any level of societal conditioning. Is your underlying right, to find out who you are. And that's really the core of life for me, coming from a more Osho spiritual background. We're in this environment and there's all this stimulation and all this drama and stuff going on in our lives. Hopefully it hasn't got totally flatlined for us yet. And through all of that, all of the emotionality that comes into us in this existence we have on this planet, we can find ourselves, we can go deeper inside, develop our awareness. Hi to Maclovia. Thank you so much. I'm going through shamanic death. Lol, thanks for your help. Cool, no worries. I remember these shamanic groups, sometimes you'd have to dig a grave for yourself. I don't think they make you dig it like 6 foot down. And then you have to get in the grave and kind of spend the night there and stuff. I mean, they don't fill it in, But to get into those feelings around death, and I think that's a fascinating practice to do. A therapist that I learned the most from, called Varesh, created a meditation called the Samasati meditation, which is a 1 hour meditation on death. And that's an awesome process to do. You can buy the CD on iTunes or buy the download on iTunes, The Humaniversity Samasati meditation, really like 1 hour, really going through different phases of your own death in your mind. And it's when you really allow yourself to go there into this realization, because we spend so much of our time in this life holding off thoughts of death, Finally, it's quite satisfying to think, okay, bring it on, not right at the end, but actually to really go there, to spend an hour at least going there into the thoughts of death. It's a guided process. Dude, you gay? No, not really gay. But randomly sounds like some kind of robot thing. But gayness is okay, I mean, all guys have a gay side, I think. I was on some workshops and I was like, I thought, yeah, let's try some gay stuff, why not? But it didn't really, I tried it with another guy who wasn't really gay and was also in the same kind of mode, and it didn't really go so far. But like, yeah, I'm still looking for who I am. Does it matter if Devaraj is gay? I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a robot thing, because it looks like one of those things that kind of, it sends certain messages out to people, which are the same, sort of little provocative ones. And the first one saying, Osho Lila Venomous, doesn't really mean anything. That's like the name of the location on this video. So I think that's that. But we can spend an hour discussing it if you want. I'm still looking for who I am. Yeah, that's it, we're all doing that. And what I was saying before with this whole crisis in masculinity and the Me Too thing and all of this is like, it's also because we've become lured into this mind-held belief that we can engineer and manipulate our personality a lot. And the trouble is, there's a cost to doing that. So the sense, it started, I think, with this new man thing and the idea now guys should be really sensitive and now guys should be like this. And so men try and follow these things, you try and re-engineer your self-image and the image you're projecting out into the world, and that is like some process you have to go through. Can you go through? Can you block it? I don't know how to do any of that stuff. But I guess if it gets to be a drag, you can block it. I don't mind so much, I guess if it's all robots communicating with me, I would think, fuck, what am I doing? But, this is the underlying thing. And the thing to remember, like I say, is you have a right to find out who you are. And of course, you've got to take feedback. If you're doing extremist stuff, yeah, you could end up in prison or worse, I mean, but on the journey to find out who you are, to develop more self-awareness, to me, that's the core of what life is really about, and to go out and go for the experiences you want, that you feel pulled towards, Guys are coming to workshops and they want to overcome feelings of low self-esteem, feeling like, they always go for the partner that's not really their number one, ladies too. And, the thing is, you got to explore all this stuff. It is much easier to let go of something that you have done than it is to let go of something you haven't done. And in my book, that would be the number one rule of meditation. Because if some guy's sitting there trying to become enlightened and you kind of think like, oh, but I want to go out and have loads of sexual partners, and you've not done that, it kind of haunts your mind more, or you feel like, I want to know what it's like to have a ton of fucking cash and to drive down the road in a really expensive car with everyone looking at me, And if that's haunting your mind, in some way it's more practical on a meditation level to go out and do it somehow, find a way to do it so that you can experience it. Because usually you find out, when we're very, very, when we've got certain patterns of mental behavior in our desire world, like for guys who want to have a really, really hot looking woman that everyone else fancies, that can be totally okay. Or it could be that like their self-esteem issues there, submerged a little bit, and you feel like, okay, if I had a really sexy girlfriend, or if your woman a really sexy boyfriend that other women wanted, then I would be okay, is the bottom line, And often it's really interesting to look at patterns of attraction and sexuality, because generally the people that we're most attracted to that really haunt us, like for a long time I had a big thing with crazy Latin women, and they usually represent something that we don't think we can bring in ourselves. Makes sense, eh? We want to be whole, and we think, no, I can't really give that part to myself, so I've got to get it from the outside. I've got to get it in my partner, And I had to learn how to be more outgoing and extreme and less concerned in myself, and then I don't have to spend my life with crazy plate smashing Mediterraneans shrieking in Spanish at me. I have done a bit of that, and it's also okay, but it can get a little draining after a while. So, to bring to bring my own crazy side out, that's what I understood in that pattern of attraction. And you can look, there's so much stuff you can do on your own. You can look, who really turns me on, and what attributes do they have? What do they embody in my mind? And am I giving that to myself? Is there some way I can get that for myself? Hi, Devaraj. Started the day with your bow and arch workout and then the belly roller. Felt fantastic all day. Cool. I'm very happy to hear that. This morning I was doing the belly meditation with a small group here at Lila. And then what did we do? Shit, I can't even remember. Oh, we did extended kind of teenager release. I'm getting into that. I always used to use it as a little prelude, this kind of shoulder movement and stamping like you're a really protesting teenager, Certain movements that teenagers make when they protest. And I kind of worked out it's a way they have of releasing parental conditioning. Because the teenage years are when you start to let go of the parents and you want to do your own thing. So I did that this morning and did it for 10 minutes with some guys. And I think that was cool. It certainly felt pretty good for me. And the belly roller, yeah, wow. Great gibberer. That's an awesome fucking thing, the belly roller. I think I did it most of last week for like 15 minutes. And trying to just totally relax over it with a cushion and then the foam roller or yoga roller they sometimes call it, and lying on top of that and adjusting every 5 minutes, moving it like a little bit, and then I had to sit down after that because I was just like, whoa, that's quite intense. And then did a little bit of kind of lying on my back with like a yoga mat under my lower back just to take it a little bit off the floor, and then soles of the feet together and kind of lying back in this kind of body open pose. It's great, I learn how to get my energy really clear for the day, and then I have to try and not do too much behavior which locks my body up, such as being too much on the computer in my mind, in this kind of computer world, or too much time driving, I'm not driving so much these days. Tried it with a rugby ball at first, which lasted 3 seconds. You mean like a rugby ball pointing upwards or pointing on the side? That sounds pretty fucking hardcore. Then with a rolled up quilt, much less painful. Yeah, for sure. I've been using the foam roller. I like that. I tried it with a football, and I might try that again. I like to have it quite high off, so I take the foam roller about. I got this one of these meditation cushions, which are good for emotional release stuff as well. And I can even show you in a sec. So I would take this cushion, which is quite a solid cushion. I think they fill them with like buckwheat hull or something like that. It's made by Yoga Mad, this one. I got it off eBay for £10. Stick a yoga roller on top and then lie on top of this thing. And that really good. It's good to start gentle with this because it's a very intense exercise. Most people have belly tension or some level of blockage there and you don't want to hurt yourself. So it's good to start off gentle, and then if you feel more confident and no longer so much is happening, then to step it up a little bit, I think, and see what you get. But what I'm really reasoning on the side, okay, cool. what I'm realizing, with this belly stuff is like, the belly is like the pit of the psyche, a bit like Dante's Inferno or something like that, where you go down layers and you get right into the pit of the psyche, and it's like where all the old shit is stored, even on the ancestral level or maybe even DNA or karmic level. It's all kind of, it's in the gut, basically. It's all in the gut. And so when you really want to clean out and get yourself clear and clean and your awareness up and your capacity to love up, the capacity to really go for what you want and feel good about yourself, that's like an area where you can work, where it'll go on for a long time. You can get a lot. Mohammed, how can I get certified in bioenergetics? I don't think there's many training programs around these days. In the Alexander Lowen time, he died about a decade ago, I think. There was a school of bioenergetic analysis called, and they would run programs. I never was involved in that. I came to it through much more full-on intense therapeutic school I was involved with in Holland. But who's it made by? The cushion, that is. This cushion, yeah. This cushion is made by someone called Yoga Mad, basically, written like that. That's their logo. It's a good one. I've had it about 5 years, and you can sit on it. I can whack it with my fists sometimes. I haven't done that excessively. I reckon it would burst eventually. They mostly do when you whack them. if they're really in the group room for a long time. But it's a very good cushion. It's a great fucking cushion. I think they're about 30 quid new. Look up Yoga Mad. So just going back to you, to get certified in bioenergetics, I don't know of any proper training programs that are kind of recognized. In Holland, in Brazil, at the Namaste Center in South Brazil, they were doing that for a while, and I think they've stopped now because people kind of get very confident with it, and they've done a 5-day or 10-day training, and they're not really ready to go out and teach. I'm hoping to be able to develop some kind of teaching program in the next couple of years. It's more of a long-term thing. To be honest, I'm still getting my head around bioenergetics. I'm getting my own head around it and getting into working with different parts of the body myself and then with other people. But hopefully there's something, some kind of training can emerge. The problem with it is that it's intense group room stuff. And, so it's possible someone could go and do a 5-day training. It's a little bit comparable to some of the dramas that have gone on in the sexuality and tantra world, where someone goes and does a training for a week and then decides they're going to run tantra groups, and some kind of major drama around sexuality starts to emerge, and it all looks really bad and goes back to the organization or the individual that gave the training originally, and they have to start to think, well, is it really okay to tell people to go and run tantra groups after a 7-day training? And likewise, with bioenergetics, I don't know, you need that. I think what's happened before with the more dynamic kind of schools of it, certainly like Prem Milan in Brazil, is that it's become, I don't know if it's so kind of so much integrity in really saying to people, hey, go out and teach now, I do say that a bit personally, but I think, you have to really know your own body, and you need to get some time in the group room. We're starting a training program here for people in the community who are on a thing called the Team Leader Program or the Core Group, and that we're going to be training people more. Yoga Mad type, remember. And a question from Kevin. I also tried the rolled up mat under the stomach. I had no idea I had so much tension there. Does it go away? I'll just stick with it. Yes, it goes away. The thing with the stomach tension, belly tension is you don't need to push too hard to get rid of it, basically. You need to use a rolled up, something quite gentle to start with, and you really try and just totally relax over it. And you keep breathing. Breathing through the mouth is good. And maybe, if your head is on one side, every now and again turn it to the other side. So because you'll notice it changes a little bit the areas of the stomach, but it's pushing into, if you've got something like the yoga roller, you're doing it with that, the foam roller, which is quite solid, then, you can move it around a little bit every few minutes. And start with just, whatever's practical for you. Maybe 30 seconds is all you want to do to start with. And then step it up a little bit. Certainly you can do 15 minutes. But, of course, if it gets painful, you need to stop. Basically, you need to stop. Simple as that. Quite apart from in the belly, there's also the psoas or iliopsoas muscles kind of stretching up around here. And those hold a lot of tension. When guys are working, I can feel it just doing that, When guys are working with sexuality also, and you want to increase your ability to feel sexually alive and sexually confident, psoas muscles. So with a roller, you're getting into the psoas muscles as well. You're getting into them anyway, anything that's putting pressure there. And the trick, like I'm saying, is, to breathe and feel what's happening and to really try and relax into it. And don't overdo it, especially the first few times. Have you any suggestions for stuttering kids? Well, I guess stuttering is classically a sign of anxiety. I mean, my take on it psychologically would be they need to make a lot of sound, scream and shout, go a bit crazy. And, I mean, it usually, certainly, it seems to be some form of anxiety. Often people stutter, obviously it's a talking thing, so normally you would be talking when other people are present. But they stutter more in certain social situations rather than others, it can be. So there's some background level of anxiety that is close to the surface and is somewhere creating the stutter, So I would think anything that really comes to show yourself and feel okay, to come out, to make sound, to scream and shout, to be okay, anything you can do to kind of break the face mask, as we call it in therapy, I think would be a good thing to try. And, with kids, you've got to see if they want to. It's one thing to do something yourself and to experiment on your own body. But with the kids, you got to see if that's what if they're open for doing that, or not to be too pushy with it. I think. Uh, and generally, I often get people coming to my workshops, or one thing I get people saying, my husband really needs to do this group, women saying that, or my girlfriend really needs to do this group, guys saying that, and it's like, they're like, I'm going to make them do this group, they need to do this group. I just done this group and they need to do it. And, it's like, yeah, you can encourage other people to do workshops and that, but, it's not really going to work unless it's coming from them, like they're turned on to do it. Otherwise it's not really gonna do so much. So that's a general principle as well. And of course, I don't have kids, so I don't know so much first-hand experience with kids, and I'm sure I would be a bit different if I did. But I think, they have to want to do something also, and reality is most people come to therapy, some people come in their 20s, but usually it's 30s, 40s, 50s, usually it's that. So because I guess in your 20s, in your teenage years, you're just discovering the world. You're going out for different experiences here, there, all over the place. And also your ego is real powerful in that age, That's the time when, any kind of underlying feelings inside of you, you just project them out on the world, make the world wrong, You got issues with authority, then straight away, it's the world, it's your system. We need to get rid of the system. It's the banks, it's the governments, whatever, It's like a knee-jerk reaction inside the individual psyche. But there's actually a wound around authority there. There's nothing wrong with authority, It can be power can be exerted well, or it can be exerted badly. I had pretty much no positive experience of authority as a kid, and I became an utter authority tripper for the whole of my fucking 20s and quite a chunk of my 30s, and I can still go there sometimes. But at some point I realised it's a lot more to do with my dad than it is to do with society. So, where are we getting to? I've discovered that doing any kind of work on the stomach releases tension in my jaw. What's going on there energetically? That's a good question, and I can answer that. At least I hope I can. And it's very, very simple. Your stomach, your belly center, is a very, very powerful center within you that progressively we decamp. We come out of there, We come out of there. I still can't see the tables in the way. But we come out of there and we start to occupy thought world, and the mind takes over all of these jobs, and it's like the mind is like a bad 70s boss, the kind of boss that just thinks, well, if everyone would just do what the fuck I tell them, this would all be all right, the company would be great. And, we've given the power over to this. And when you start to get more in your belly, your mind starts to realize at some point, whoa, I've taken on way too many jobs here. This guy can run personal power, lower down. He can run self-expression. He can feel okay with himself. All of that comes from the belly. So as the belly becomes more active, the upper body relaxes, basically. So tension held in the throat, tension held in the jaw, tension held around the heart, in the back and the top, around the arms, stuff to do with personal power, stuff to do with boundaries, stuff to do with sexuality. If there's one recipe for disaster, it's getting your brain to try and run sexuality. Look at the fucking state of it now, with male and females fighting at each other all over the fucking place. They're all trying with their mind to work out who they should be with your mind. It's not the fucking mind's job to work out sexuality. It's down in the belly, it's down in the pelvis. So, to answer your question, I have a tendency to rattle on. To answer your question, as your belly becomes more powerful, your upper body and your mind in particular will relax. Yes, your jaw will relax if you're holding a lot of tension in your jaw. Classically, they used to say the jaw, and particularly the masseter muscle, which is a muscle around here from the cheekbone down to the jawbone, holds a lot of anger. And I don't think it's quite as simple as that. But an interesting exercise is to really get in there with like a knuckle and massage the old masseter muscle on one side and see how much you can push before it really starts to hurt. A lot of tension around there in people often, It's good to do it and be able to make a bit of sound. But that can also help release the jawbone and get this tension around here to move. It can take a while. It's also relating to the upper body a bit, I think, the jaw. Cool. I get really tingly in my lower legs, like to the point, if numbness, I think you mean when doing the arch, what's all that about? It's weird feeling, but not off-putting at all. Tingly is usually some form of start of some kind of movement, you know. There's classically, so I used to call it technique, I don't know why, but when for example I'm teaching breath work or something, or it can happen in bioenergetics, the hands start to get really locked and they feel this incredible tingling sensation all around them. And that's usually a classic manifestation of a form of kind of energetic block, and you carry on breathing and you move through it. And with the muscles in the legs, it can be something like that, an energetic block, or related to it, it can be the muscle starting to get ready to just spontaneously release. You know, our mind is constantly exerting a lot of control over the muscle, way too much for most people. And at some point when you're doing something like the bow and the arch, it's like a vibe, the muscle kind of gets confident. Almost. The muscle starts to get confident. It's been downtrodden by the mind, and it starts to realize, I'm going to fucking release here. And so the body starts to shake. And the mind's kind of like, what the fuck's going on here? I'm supposed to be in control of this fucking operation. And my body's starting to shake. But it feels good. So it's good to allow it. Breathe and allow. If a tingling is coming, I think it's basically good. Any form of sharp stabbing pain is obviously something where you got to stop. But tingling is fairly normal. And, you know, doing it in the legs, it's okay. There's even a couple of poses you can do with the bow and arch, where you, especially with the arch part, where you can start to try and induce spontaneous shaking from the legs. You know, I show that in a video somewhere. Something to do with muscle release or a big back release or something like that. Yeah. Cheers. Great explanation. Thank you, Jibra. My pleasure, no worries, man. Yeah, you know, it's also something where people mindfuck a lot, you know. I need to get this kundalini thing happening in my muscles, in my legs or whatever. It happened to that guy over there. Why isn't it happening to me? I'm not good enough, and a whole comparison trip. But the reality is, you know, is that you don't know what your muscles are like right now. We don't have a way to measure it that I know of personally. And so all you can do is, like, it's one of those things where you can put yourself in the position where it can happen, and if it happens, great, and if it doesn't, it's also okay. Your muscles don't need it right now, you know, they don't need it, they have their own intelligence. Yeah, tried that one, back release with shaking legs. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can do it kind of, you know, you're in the arch position with your fingers about maybe 6 inches from the floor, and you lift your heels a little bit off the ground, leaning forwards, and just see if a kind of shake starts to come, straightening your legs a little bit in that. And then you can also lean forwards with your fists loose to kind of plant them on the floor like this in front of you. You can adjust the distance from your feet. And again, straighten the legs, lift the heels off the floor, and see if the shaking starts. You can do that in the arch position. And sometimes it induces some spontaneous stuff. And you can also find that could go on for a while, you know, a few sessions, and then it wears off. And that means something's cleared, you know, you don't need to do it anymore. You've cleared a layer. Because the body's like an onion, really, you know. It's like you're peeling off layers of stuff. And so the same old, it's like when you used to play pinball and you play once and then they all set it up again and you have to play it all again. Sometimes a little bit harder the second time. And it's a little bit like that. You go through the same level of dramas that you go through in therapy workshops. You go through them multiple times on different levels, clearing each level, a bit like a video game of some sort. Yeah, cool. Yeah, this bioenergetics thing, hey, I like it, you know, but it's something you can do in the privacy of your own home. Most of the exercises don't require you to make too much noise, you know, and it gives you the chance to really get some development going. Anyone out there who's in the London area or the Brighton area, I'm running workshops soon, one-day workshops, where you can really, you know, get a bit of encouragement and feedback or whatever, and deepen your practice. I have one April 22nd in Brighton at Regency Square, and one in Finsbury Park, London on May the 6th. So I'm busy out there trying to sell those a little bit. What I'm finding with the YouTube channel, you know, I've got over 1,000 subscribers now, so I'm really chuffed about that. And of course, you know, it's not really practical. A lot of them are distributed around the world, and people are saying, well, you know, I'd be up for coming for a 5-day workshop, but there's no point in coming for a 1-day workshop, which is totally fair enough. So I'm just looking if the channel continues to build, how can I offer workshops that makes it practical for people to come? So I'm going to be looking at that a little bit more. I'm trying to develop this thing, Spiritual Boot Camp, which is currently a 3-day bioenergetics intensive that's going on here at the centre in Dorset, west of England, and that's coming up at the end of June. And then trying to develop that a little bit more and do some more. The sucking reflex exercise. I think you sent me a message about this, and I've been a bit busy today, but I didn't get a chance to do it. Can't work out what to do with my breathing. Do you actually suck in each time? Yeah, you do. I mean, not sure. Let's see if I can demonstrate it a bit. I guess when I'm opening my mouth, some air is coming in, you know. What I also notice is you can feel a shortness of breath quite often, but generally you're okay and you can keep going. I think it somewhere refers to constrictions around the neck or throat on a physical or an energetic level. A lot of people have womb trauma, which is very hard to diagnose. I mean, it could be your mother remembers there was a cord, umbilical cord wrapped around your neck or something, but if not that, it can be hard to diagnose. But there's a sense when you do like the sucking exercise, which is what you're basically doing in this exercise is the desire, the instinct to suck is it's very primal. You know, as soon as you come out your mum, you start to breathe oxygen and then you want to suck on the nipple, you know. So it's really primal. It's hardwired in the DNA. And what's useful about it is, you know, it switches your brain chemistry back to being like 30 seconds old, basically. Briefly is what it does on a certain level. So when you start to do this sucking, it starts to allow all sorts of other feelings that are held in the system that have come into you afterwards, all the repressed stuff that you've been repressing through your life. It can start to free it up and get it to move. So it's a useful exercise. And yet you can feel sometimes like you can't breathe with it. But see how that goes, you know, because if you really feel like you can't breathe and you're going red in the face or blue in the face or something, obviously, you know, you need to stop and start breathing properly. But check in if you can keep doing it and just see what happens. Sometimes we can get the idea that we can't breathe, but we actually can. And because this instinct is so primal, once you practice it for a little while, you should find it coming back. You know, of course, we haven't done it a lot recently, usually, but it's hard for me to know exactly where and when I'm breathing in or out. It feels a little bit like some of it's coming through the nose, maybe, because it felt a little bit tougher like that. I'd have to, but I think, you see, you just stick with it. Just keep on trying. I sense, you know, you're trying to figure it out by thinking about it, which is totally cool, but I'm not quite sure exactly where you breathe in. And, you know, breathing is an autonomic thing. It's not something we have to think about, thankfully, or we wouldn't have much space. We'd die pretty quick if we stopped thinking about it. So it's autonomic. So my sense is if you keep practicing, at some point it's a little bit like riding a bike. And, you know, you don't have to maybe think about it. Just keep practicing and seeing if it starts to come. I can show you from the side as well if that's easier. I don't know. It is like you're sucking in nourishment somewhere. And it's also good for this, the sucking reflex. Particularly if you had trouble in your life, really giving it to yourself, you know. You know, saying, hey, I have a right to have a good job and a hot-looking girlfriend or whatever it is, you know, that you want, or, you know, the ideal boyfriend and a really good self-image, and I want to make money. If there's sort of negative thoughts around those things about really having an abundant life, sucking is a great thing to practice because it works on that part of the psyche that, you know, thinks that we don't have a right in some way. You know, literally you're sucking in nourishment, and it trains other parts of your mind to say yes to taking in wealth, to taking in money. You know, it's not like you're suddenly going to stop sucking and people are going to start giving you money, but it makes you more open to receive if you've had a bit of a block there in the past. Somewhere you felt like, oh, I'm not good enough to really have the best or whatever. You know, it starts to open that stuff up, and it's a pretty easy exercise usually to do. A great practice with it is, you know, to do like half an hour or an hour sometimes. Even lying down is good. You can even do it if you get insomnia and you've got fuck all else to do at night. It's 4 a.m. and you've woken up again. Just start the old sucking reflex going, and it can be a great treatment for insomnia as well. So I hope you can just practice, yes, and let your natural body intelligence start to work it out. So just practice and try and relax with it. And like I say, it's quite common, I've had it myself, to feel like at certain stages with the sucking you can hardly breathe. But when I really check it, it's like actually I can breathe. But curiously, I've got this kind of idea like, oh, this is really extreme and I can't breathe now. And I've seen that quite a bit with the old sucking thing. I haven't let it for a while, but it's a good one. Got that from a lady in Brazil, the sucking reflex. Sucking up the old nourishment. That's a great exercise. I think it's good. I'm going to do a video on self-esteem soon. In fact, I'm hoping to do a few because so many people ask me about it, and you know, I certainly had tons of issues around self-esteem myself in the past. So I'm going to start with a video on that and just try and unravel it a little bit and unpick it a little bit, understanding it sort of almost from a neurological level, and then looking at why we can develop low self-esteem, you know, and things like this. And the sucking reflex can come in that as quite a useful exercise as conditioning you to believe you have a right to take in good stuff, you know, because primarily it's what you're doing when you suck. You're initially sucking in milk to survive from your mother's breast, you know. So it's like it works on a psychological as well as a physical level, the sucking response. And yeah, I want to do some stuff with self-esteem and really starting to understand self-esteem, and it'll get my own mind focused a little bit on it. Oh, looks like we've got another bot going through it here. Microsoft Gaming, this one's called. I guess. I don't know if it's a bot. I don't know. We'll see what it says. See if it asks me if I'm gay or not. Maybe it's the same program. Every now and again, I used to have a habitual fear that I really am gay, you know. That was kind of... I mean, I'm 57 now. I guess it's a bit late for that one, but certainly during my 20s, you know, am I just living a lie? Was like an underlying kind of belief pattern in my mind, you know. Am I really gay? And I always fancied women like crazy, but yeah, I was very, very shy when I was younger and very traumatized as well from having my mum leave me and certain level of other wounding going on early in life. And then, you know, I would spend a long time between kind of having sex. You know, I might get drunk and maybe have some drunken fling and, you know, then both be repulsed by each other the next day or whatever. And so for a long time, I wasn't really getting so much sex, to be honest. And girlfriends also very few and far between. I didn't start having sex till I was 22, which is quite late these days. Always, you know, it always seemed like in school as a 15-year-old, all the other boys are telling you how many women they've shagged, which probably was quite a lie or a severe exaggeration. But, you know, it's easy from that to develop a lot of low self-esteem, which was where I was at in those days. And, you know, so I did develop the idea that maybe I'm gay, you know, and am I living a lie? And then somewhere through therapeutic journey, that one just disappeared completely, or I wasn't so bothered with it. Hello, sir. I'm not a bot. Okay, cool enough, Mr. Microsoft Gaming. No worries. Happy to answer any questions about bioenergetics or therapy you have. God, we have such a similar upbringing. Okay, cool. Yeah, you know. And it's relaxing somewhere, you know, to find guys who can also discuss this stuff. It was revelationary for me to, like, come to live in this community in 2002 and start to feel, hey, I can take down the male shield, you know, the great, I'm doing really great in my life and everything's good and I'm shagging all these women or whatever kind of bullshit stories the men feel they have to tell each other, you know, keeping up this front. And, you know, to be able to talk about the bits that aren't working, you know, and feel like men aren't, because the fear for me was always, you know, if I been brought up in Essex and then London, you know, quite tough places really. Most of the UK was in the 70s and 80s, you know, and, you know, if you start to share anything like that, of course, other men are just going to take the piss out of you and you're going to feel even more shit. So, you know, of course, you just don't bother. You just keep it all bottled up inside, or maybe one day get a girlfriend and discuss it a little bit with her. But there's something about being able to share with other men, you know, about stuff that isn't working, about sexuality stuff, about whatever. That's very, very redeeming and healing deeply, you know. So I often see it in the community when we have guys sharing and there's new guys there. And it's a curious thing, you know, you can suddenly see them, wow, I can share about all this stuff. You know, it's like, whoa, this is cool, you know. It's amazing. Fascinating. Another aspect of the sexuality thing that you see in community quite a lot is like, you know, out in the world, traditionally in the 70s, 80s, 90s culture, I was brought up in, men have to be the man, you know, and we have to we have to be the man, and we have to really kind of, hold it all together and be in control and everything. And the women are traditionally kind of more submissive, not allowed to say no. It's changing a bit now, thankfully, but at the time, that was pretty prevalent. And then when you come to live in community, it's curious how it swaps around. I mean, it's really tangible, particularly with the Osho communities. And there was a lot of Osho communities back in the day. Suddenly the guys kind of realise they can share with each other, and they don't have to keep up the big male mask, and it's okay. And they still compete and fight. If a hot looking woman comes into the community, who's going to get off with her first? But it's still guys, but there's a far greater spirit of cooperation quickly develops, and with the women, well, they just start fighting like crazy. I mean, and and going for power roles or trophy males, or whatever. It's like the whole of society suddenly reverses. It's really kind of bizarre, and the guys are all kind of cooperatively getting on with each other, and the women are like just jostling for power positions and forming kind of primal kind of ways of getting into the hierarchy, and holding their space, respecting others but keeping boundaries and all of that stuff. Interesting. The Microsoft Gaming's not really talking about bioenergetics. Hello Devaraj, do you know any connections between yawning and energy movement? I get a lot of yawning. I think that's good, man. That sounds good to me, Tiago. Yeah, I get a lot of burping myself, and that's the throat starts to go into real kind of spasm, and that's a classic opening. And yawning also, it's stretching the jaw, stretching the mouth, part of the neck and the throat, it feels basically good. So I don't know that you need some kind of theoretical thing, but it's definitely a release movement, yawning. It's a release movement, So that sounds good to me if you're getting that doing the belly exercise. It's a sign probably the upper body is starting to relax. And as it starts to relax, so we become aware. It's a little bit like the tide going out, and we can see all the shipwrecks, i.e. bits of ourselves that haven't really been healed yet, that haven't really been made whole. I still have quite a bit around my shoulders and upper back around here, and a little bit lower down, and I become very aware of it doing this belly meditation. Sometimes it's right in my fucking face, and stuff starts to move with it as well, which is good. My tonsils ache from the belly activation. Okay, yeah, I haven't heard that one yet. I get a little bit of throat, kind of a feeling like it's so much on the mouth and the throat that my voice can be a bit funny sometimes. I kind of finished leading the belly meditation. I'm doing it the whole way through with a group of guys, and then I'm starting to lead the next exercise, and my voice is almost gone, or I'm going squeaky, and I feel a bit of an idiot. I haven't had anything with the tonsils. I don't know what the long-term effects are, because I've only just started doing it myself in the last few months, and I don't really know anyone else who's doing it. What is similar a little bit is the third stage of dynamic, Osho dynamic. The Who stage is a bit similar, but it's not quite as full on as this, into the throat and into the gut. So I don't know the long-term things, but I guess you have to see if it's, if something's getting really sore, I think you need to lay off it a bit in some way, or try and do it in a way that doesn't make it sore. So I don't know the full ins and outs of it. I've actually just been teaching it to a big time, a men's group leader in America. So he's wanting to start it with his guys. So it maybe even catches on over in California. We'll see. But yeah, just let me know with the tonsils, if you find it too much. I think if any, I don't have so much experience with it myself. Some people are certainly getting quite strong nausea from doing it here in the centre. And that's usually a sign of clearing, and I'm satisfied talking to them that it's a clearing sign. It's part of a healing journey. But if you're getting a lot of belly tension, like really strong pain or anything like that, lay off. And any other aches in other parts of the body, see if you can do it without creating the ache, or otherwise give it a little bit of a rest for a bit. Taj, hey Taj, your regular visitor. We can develop low self-esteem when we are compelled to be beholden to others' needs and wants over our own. Exercises to bring this to our awareness and change. Okay, yeah, being a bit of a pleaser is what you essentially seems to be like what you're saying. Yes, that can lead to lowered self-esteem as well, though it's a pattern generally of avoiding confrontation, pleasing. Two classical personality types have That's the easiest way to explain it. But some like to be in control and dominating and controlling a situation, and they're more keen that they don't feel vulnerability. They're kind of okay with being a bit pissed off, but they don't like vulnerability. And the other classic personality stereotype negative is the pleaser, who wants to avoid confrontation. So they just look at going with the flow. They like to go with the flow, and they want to keep people happy. They don't want confrontation. So you need to find a safe way to practice some level of confrontation. Is a good thing for that if you're talking about yourself or if it's someone else you're talking about. And to get into making sound, particularly anger is good. Anger from the belly. This belly exercise will be great for the pleasers as well. Starting to develop the feeling like, hey, I have a right to establish my boundaries. This is important for any kind of pleasing behavior. They can easily get overwhelmed. They have to be very careful about who they hang out with, that they don't kind of get energetically sucked by people, because they can't easily say no. And when you can't say no from your center, from your guts, people will seek to bully you. They will seek to suck your energy. They will see you as someone who they can dump all their problems on, and just, that you'll always be there for them to listen to their latest story. And, you want to say something back after half an hour of listening to the latest love drama that's gone wrong. But there's no time for that, unfortunately. They're just off somewhere. They've dumped some of their negativity and been listened to. So, yes, low self-esteem can go with that. It's not exactly the same as pleasing, but putting other people's needs first, this is definitely the pleasing tendency. You need to get into the anger side, and the belly will help. And anything you can do to express anger and to feel like it's okay to be angry, to be confrontational, to have safe experiences of confrontation, not getting into fights and stuff physically, but workshops or areas where you can be more confrontational will help with that. I guess it's like a muscle it should build up, but I'm hearing what you're saying. Cool. Yeah, just let me know how it goes, man, because I'm quite busy with developing this exercise myself. I'm also homesick from work today. Any good exercises when I'm sick? I mean, the thing I do to keep sickness at bay is have a cold shower for about 3 to 5 minutes every morning, and not even any hot to start or finish. So I found that to be, I imagine how it works, and everyone says it works, from hugely boosting the immune system. The immune system, as I see it, as you get older, it kind of gets like Dad's Army. It was a program in England, a TV program about during the war, they conscripted, all the young tough soldiers went off to fight in the war in Germany or wherever, and the older ones they conscripted them to be like, kind of like the home guard. They called it the home guard, and obviously they weren't so tough and so fit, but they'd have a little go if the Germans ever invaded, which they didn't actually, but that was the idea. And I think the immune system over time gets a bit like this, like a rather raggedy old army that hasn't really got its shit together. And of course what it needs is a regular level of controlled threat, of controlled crisis, essentially. And getting under ice cold water or bloody cold water once a day is a controlled crisis for the immune system. And what it does is step up. It steps up. And as it steps up progressively, if you do this every day, the immune system gets so powerful, I think. I live in a community with 25 people. Sometimes there's a cold going around everyone, and I can feel it trying to come in right around here. I can feel it coming in. Get under the cold shower and it's away. I haven't had a cold for over a year now. I think I've had one illness since I started doing cold showers about 18 months ago. So I totally recommend that for with holding sick. Any exercise you can do when you are sick. Being sick can also be a sign that your body needs to rest. So maybe you don't need to push it too much. But lying in bed, you can do something like the sucking exercise, or I think there's some lying down exercises that are quite gentle and quite provocative called the Kundalini Aquatic Spine. I think I called it that in some mad moment. You can look on my channel. And also pelvic exercises, stuff where it's not too physical, where you don't have to stand up and put energy out, but, more feeling based. Because it's also very important that what we're really doing in bioenergetics is deepening the amount we can feel our body. Most people in reality are probably only feeling 10% of what they potentially could in terms of the actual raw sensation, just sitting down and saying, how much can I feel my body? And with bioenergetics, as you open the muscle system up, as you can feel your belly, You know, you start to feel stronger and clearer, and you feel like you have the right to be who you are. You don't have to mentally rehearse everything going on in different situations. You just walk into somewhere. If it all gets fucked up, you feel a bit upset for a while, and then it's okay, or you get the support you need. You don't, you know, so, and you feel like your sexuality is okay. It's okay to be a fucking guy and be sexual, you know. As you feel into your pelvis, you get that. As you feel into your spine, you feel you've got natural support. You don't need to cling on to other people so much or something like that, you know. So feeling is very important. So if you're sick at home and you can't do a lot of intense exercise, work with feeling more and work with lying down exercises like on the pelvis is what I would suggest. Tonsils again. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, just see how it goes, Luigi, with the belly thing. See how it goes. Taj, thank you. Can you describe the belly exercise? The belly thing I'm doing is essentially what you're doing is you're starting, you know, first stage, standing feet quite wide apart and outsides of your feet roughly parallel, knees a bit bent and flexible, and from 1 or 2 minutes you breathe and feel into the belly through the mouth, and then you start to make a low sound on the out breath as deep as you can make, like you imagine you're blowing a didgeridoo down your throat to try and wake up the energy in your belly, like. Then you do that for about 5 minutes. It's on YouTube. And then the third stage, which isn't on the YouTube version, you lift your heels up and drop them down, and you start to make a low grunt, like. You look a bit like one of the apes in 2001. It's quite spooky when you do it with a group of 30 people and they all start doing it. It's quite primal. It hits something in my brain like, what the fuck? But it's good. And then you do that, increasing the speed. This is a little bit different from the YouTube version. I'm going to put a 2.0 version out, and you're kind of like, and then at the end you sit down for 5 minutes because you normally need that to come back to yourself a bit. That is it in about a minute. I'm planning, there's one version out called the Belly Activation Bioenergetic Workout on YouTube, and I'm going to do a 2.0 version pretty soon, hopefully. Can you describe? Okay, the cold showers. Did you build up the temperature down slowly? No, I started in November actually, in 2016, and I'd been reading about Wim Hof. My mate Joe in Brighton had been going on about Wim Hof and telling me what an awesome fucking thing it was. So I thought, fuck it, I'm going to try it. And two other people randomly told me about it because I'm in the kind of alternative scene, so I hear what's hot, what's exciting coming out. People tell me things, and I thought, fuck it, I've got to try it. And I just thought I'd just get under the cold shower. Where I am, the shower, it's a Maracoda shower tap, which is quite useful because some showers, even on the coldest setting, they're still letting a bit of hot in, which is not what you want in this. So with this one, it just goes pure cold, and it is bloody cold out here in Dorset in the middle of winter. So yeah, no, some people do it hot water first and then cold to finish, which you can do. I just said no, fuck it, I'm just gonna wham down with the cold water, and you know, stick it for a minute if I can, you know. And it's quite tortuous at first, you know, for the first year, I'm looking up at that shower tap as it's about to I switch the tap on. It takes about 2 seconds for the water to come with this feeling of trepidation. But I get my head under first and then just, you know, use it soap all over the body and stuff. And I do 2 or 3 minutes in there. It's absolutely awesome, you know. I mean, I said it before, if I was running the NHS, I'd get everyone doing it, you know. People go to the doctors whining about all sorts of nonsense. You know, and I just say, okay, Mr. Brown, I've just switched your cold water off. Come back in a week, you'll be fine. Yes, it's a bit macho and whatever, and for sure some people are genuinely ill, but there's an awful lot of malingering going on, really. And it's not that it always needs something really kind of Sergeant Major-ish, but cold showers are fucking awesome, you know, and I can't recommend it enough. After some sessions, my neck feels wobbly and shaky. Okay, it feels good and getting rid of the usual rigid feeling, but the rigidity seems to come back by itself. Any ideas how to prevent that? Well, classically what happens, you know, we do some level of therapeutic exercise that's working and we feel loose and open, but the reality is the mind is a kind of self-maintaining cerebral zone. And so, you know, when you stop doing the exercise or the group or the therapy, whatever it is, and your mind starts to re-establish itself, and in doing that, it'll probably include certain things that rigidify you, ways of thinking or ways of behaving. Sitting on a computer is a classic one. Having to drive long distances is another one. Certain habitual forms of behavior, also eating patterns or drinking patterns, drug using patterns, they all come back because there's something in the mind that wants stasis, you know. And so it acts as though it's got a physical presence, even though really the mind is just being projected by the brain, essentially. It acts as though it wants stasis, and so it wants to keep you in a certain way. And when we start to do groups, it says, okay, do the group, you know, go and do that exercise for half an hour, but, you know, I'm going to be back afterwards. But you can change your behavior progressively, because what helps to keep the mind in stasis, you know, which is not good, is for all the repressed emotions in the muscle system. And so and that exerts a charge, and then it holds the mind. It makes it easier for the mind to keep this kind of rigid feeling. And that rigidity is transmitted down into the body, like I say, through our behavior. Certain behavior patterns that we go back to all the time. And as you start to get the charge out of the muscle system, then the mental rigidity, we have more choice. You might feel like, I always have to drink a pint after work. It's the only way I can get through the day. Even though you know it's not very good for you or whatever. For those of you not in England, a pint is an alcoholic drink. And, you know, what will start to happen is some of your habitual belief systems can be much more easily challenged. And your habitual daily behaviours can be more easily challenged. So look, you know, when the rigidity comes back, which is normal, what's happening is you've gone back into some level of this mental web that is trying to maintain the rigidity. So, you know, everyone's on it. Everyone's on this kind of roller coaster of getting open and getting closed, you know, having crises. Or also when you're open, of course, more shit comes up. By shit, I mean stuff that you don't really, you're not so wanting to feel. And so that feeds in again to the mental web getting its control again and stuff like this. You know, it's a roller coaster essentially. And it isn't easy. Well, I'm hardcore, you know about Wim Hof. He's a complete... I don't know. I've never done Wim Hof's course because it was €200 or something, and I thought, oh, bollocks to that. It's perfectly cold out here in England. I'll just get outside. So I developed my own way of doing cold training with Osho chakra breathing. Yeah. But it's okay. So that hopefully gives you some information, Kevin, about the rigidity. Look, before the rigidity comes back, you know, is there a behaviour that you suddenly get into? Suddenly you just want to get on the computer and do all those emails in a really tense or rigid way or whatever it is, you know. And look, you know, what's the feeling going on before you do that, you know. It's tough, man, you know. You do all this stuff to open up and then we go back into old patterns of behaviour. I had to move, you know. I was living in central London doing therapy. I take like 5 steps forwards and 4 steps back again because I felt I had to armour myself living in central London. I was also a bit of a dodgy character and we were all armoured as fuck. So that also didn't help. I had to change my lifestyle quite a lot because I wanted to keep being able to open and heal. So look what you need a little bit and try as much as you can to take responsibility, because it's not just an autonomic process getting rigid again. There's underlying things that we're doing and belief systems we're buying into where we end up making ourselves rigid again. You know, it's an ongoing journey. Wim Hof, yeah, I don't know. Wim Hof, I don't know much about him. He's a complete nutter. Okay. Trump, something about Trump. Blah, blah, blah. Well, needs Trump needs us. Trump. Well, anyway, that seems to stop now. But, you know, yeah, you know. I mean, Trump, I made a few posts about Trump and stuff like that, you know. Because in a sense, I don't really mind Trump and Putin, you know. I can kind of feel them, you know. Which, you know, living in a new age community is not a popular opinion. But if I had rather had Trump over that Canadian guy, Justin Trudeau, who, I don't know, the few times I've seen him on TV, I think, oh my God, he's just virtue signalling, trying to prove to everyone what a nice guy he is, you know. I wouldn't trust that fucker as far as I could throw him, you know. Trump, you kind of know what you're dealing with. Putin, you kind of know what you're dealing with, you know. So the way my mind works personally is I feel a bit more secure like that. But I'm not really into Trump as God. We can leave that one, I think. Kevin Lang, seems like a long process. Yes. Want to get rid of the shit faster than the process allows. You see, there's something in that statement which is a clue, in that you can take more responsibility, you know, because when you say it's a process, you make it sound like something autonomic that's going on like breathing that you don't have so much control over, or heartbeat or something like that, an even deeper autonomic process. But actually you do have control. we live in a culture which wants quick fixes. That's a simple fact for me, and a lot of therapies are traded on the fact that they're a quick fix, sold American style or whatever. And the reality is we have to develop more awareness, more feeling of our body, and then we know what's not good for us. So it's not necessarily that it has to be a long, long journey. Some people do for me, it's been a fucking long journey, but then that's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot. I started doing therapy groups 18 years ago. And, I'm teaching more now, but I still need to work on myself a lot of the time to keep open and to keep on opening. So for me, it's a long journey, and some people it's not so long, or they get off the roller coaster quicker. But awareness is the key, and taking responsibility is another key. Those are keys. I've got about 2 minutes left, so let's see if there's any urgent questions. And feel free to check back in. Kevin, another time. I think next Tuesday, I've got a men's group this weekend, and I'm kind of busy with a couple of other things. I'm getting quite busy on the Skype interview scene, so I'm going to do next Tuesday at 6, should be the next one. It'll pay off. In 2 months, I'm so much more confident. Cool, Luigi. Anyway, guys, if there's any last minute question, I can do one more. Otherwise, I'm going to head over to the house. It's dinner time. Not that I'm so hungry. I had some Bombay mix. Anyone who tuned in right at the beginning would have seen that. Cheers, Mohammed. Thank you, man. Thank you, guys. Yeah, cool. And like I said, there's also this Facebook group, if you're not on there, where you can checking in once a day, and anyone who wants to share about their experience or hopefully receive support from the other people, that's a good framework for it. I'll leave a link to that. Cool, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening or whatever part of the day you're in, wherever you are. And see you all later. Next Tuesday, I'll be back with Q&A, 6 p.m. UK time. Bye for now.